Alrighty, so Bonzo just wanted to make it clear, just because where you're on the power rankings doesn't mean that's where he sees you finishing rest of the season, right? You can be power ranked high or power ranked low, but there can be some things that are going to change between now and the end of the season for your team, whether it's injuries, other players coming back that affects your players developing. So I want to take a look at everyone's projected sort of roster come playoff time and see what we think about them. Now, lots of people will still be the same, but there will be some changes, of course. And Bonds just wanted to get out there his tiers for rest of season now that we've had a month of football data incoming. First is the nope tier. I don't see him making the playoffs or doing anything special. This one doesn't change. It's Arush just because it's too late. He's 0-8. By the time CMC does come back, he'll probably have only a handful of victory points. And even if CMC comes back with a full workload and is the best player ever, he's going to be out of the running for it. So he's playing to avoid Sacco. Next, Alvin. I had him ranked 9, I think I said for a reason. And yeah, when you look at his end of the year squad, it doesn't look like a playoff team. Nobody on his bench. I don't know, maybe Quentin Johnson or Ladd, maybe one of them winds up being good, but they probably just wind up stealing from each other. He has no room for any guys to break out, right? Jane Daniels was already at his ceiling. Who else on this team is going to go from mid to great? Maybe Laporta? I just don't see it. I don't see him making the playoffs. He was ranked 9 for a reason. Chuck, he was ranked 10. And when I saw Chuck's team, I was like, this team has no depth. I don't know who's developing into a playoff performer on this squad. Unless Monty gets hurt. Like, that's the best thing for his team, right? Monty gets hurt, and Marvin continues to do great. Maybe you get an injury to Dell or Nico. Like, he needs some injuries, basically, right, for his guys to become the alphas in their offense. He needs Jameis to come in for Amari to even have a chance at competing in the playoffs. I don't know who's coming in off this bench besides Waddle when Tua comes back, and that's going to be a sketchy situation. Rodgers, is he really going to get that much better as the year goes on? Got to put him in the nope tier. Coop. Yeah, Brooks and Puka are returning, but I don't care. He's currently ranked 11. I think he's going to stay down near the bottom. I think Rashad White is going to continue to seed carries over the season. I don't believe long-term in Tony Pollard to continue scoring 15 fantasy points a week. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe Jonathan Brooks comes back and he's the best thing on earth. Maybe he is in a 50-50 timeshare with, Chuba because they don't want to overwork him because they suck this year. Who off this bench is coming in? Just Puka, right? And what's he going to be when he comes back in? He would need CD and Mike Evans to keep going off. He'd need McBride to develop. He'd need Dak to go back to being around the QB, 2 or 3, not just the QB 7, which is he's at right now. He needs T to pop. This one is the sketchiest one, I would say. Like, Coop does have a path. I just don't personally believe in some of his players. But he does have a path to developing and getting out of this tier. He's obviously the last one that I have at the top there for a reason. Just as of right now today, I would not project him to be a playoff team. All right, here's the people I really think are going to be in the playoffs bunch. Troy, because Tyreek might be solid later. And when you look at it, he does have a really solid starting lineup. So he doesn't have a lot of depth, but I think Troy's team could get to the playoffs just because I think Henry and James Cook are going to keep scoring touchdowns. I think Tyreek could be better. I think he's weirdly for Pittman, even though he has Anthony Richardson, the best thing for his team would be an Anthony Richardson injury. And then hopefully Darnold is still producing at the same rate he is by the end of the season. I think Ferguson keeps developing. Jaden and Terry keep getting, better connection as the season goes on. For whatever reason, Darnell Mooney's a big part of that offense, or, Jamison Williams and his offense. So when you look at this just in the face, it's a pretty good starting lineup, right? Like, this looks as a playoff team, especially if Tyreek goes back to scoring 20 and 25 points a game instead of 10. You could see this team getting it done if his running backs keep scoring. So I see him making the playoffs or being on the cusp of making the playoffs. Ooh, what is this? How is our number 1 hot team or number 2 hot team just in the playoffs bunch? Why isn't he up higher in the tiers? Well, yeah, Ty might get Pacheco back, but it's not looking like he will. His team would be crazy with Pacheco, but Pacheco looks like he could be done for the season, or when he comes back, he might not be the same. The reason I have Ty down here, Jordan Mason will probably go from being the RB 2, 3, or 4 by the time the playoffs come around to being unstartable. It's just a fact. And when you do that, you have to move everybody up. Now, James Conner becomes his RB1. Now, who's his RB2? Raheem Mostert, is anybody in the playoffs scared of seeing that? Now he's got Jamar, Godwin, Debo. That's a good core. Kelsey, maybe by playoffs, the Chiefs have locked up their seed. Maybe, Kelsey starts saving himself for playoffs already come end of the year, right? If they have some wins locked up. Maybe Rashid comes back. Maybe they sign someone. I'm not long-term bullish on Kelsey. Who's going to be that last play? If you look at this team, this is one of the worst benches in the league, right? So just come playoff time, I think he will make the playoffs. He might even be the 1 or 2 seed, and I think you're going to be happy to play him. I think the odds that he's going to be in the top 2 scorers out of the 4 hottest, facing the other 3 hot teams come playoff time, I don't see it. I don't see him getting into the top 3. That's why I had to put him in this tier. It is what it is. It is what it is. He has some bad things going for his team with Pacheco and then Mason come end of season. John has to go in this team. I put does Chubb help, and then the Chuba and Brooks. So that's kind of what I talked about already with John's team. I just don't think trading Ayuk away was good for him. I think he has 4 great, maybe arguably 5 great players at the core of this roster. Freiermuth can be okay at tight end. He's not a needle mover. And then who's the flex? I don't think Ford's going to be a startable flex come into the year. I don't think Chuba's going to be a startable flex come playoff time. I mean, who's getting subbed in? I just can't see this team making a deep playoff run. I can see it making the playoffs. I can see it having a pop week, right? When Bijan scores twice, Kamara scores twice, Kyler throws 3 touchdowns, Jaden scores. And then there'll be a week where maybe a couple of them don't score, right? Playoffs is 3 weeks long. And I don't think they can outproduce the flex weakness for that long. Last one in just the playoffs bunch. Oh, I have 2 teams. Mark, just because losing Rashee Rice is big. Losing Rashee Rice is big for this team. And I can't put him higher if Rashee's out for the season. I can't put him higher with an RB2 of Zach Moss. I can't put him higher with Wan'Dale Robinson or, Keon Coleman being started at that flex spot. Even though he has JJ and Amon-Ra, JJ and Aaron Jones are going to eat away at touchdowns from each other because they're on the same team. The odds that they're going to keep both all going off every week the rest of the season and the Vikings stay this hot, I just don't see it. I also took a look at, they play Chicago, Seattle, and Green Bay in the playoffs. And his team is quarter Vikings. So that's something I took into consideration. I think he makes the playoffs. I don't think he has championship upside. Maybe you get an injury to ETN and the Tank would immediately be a top 10 running back. That would be good for this squad. But that's about all I can see as far as him having significant playoff upside. I think he makes the playoffs, good team. But when we get to this part of the tiers, of course, we're talking about can they win a championship? Sam is going to be stuck in this playoffs bunch. Devontae, the only needle mover, is what I said. Not much is going to change with this team, essentially, between now and the playoffs, right? Kyron might score less touchdowns because Kupp comes back and Puka comes back. Najee, I don't know. Pickens, I don't know. Garrett Wilson, he might have someone else joining him in New York. Or even if he does start to produce, just look at the flex on this team. Yeah, Deontay's good, but then, I don't know, Trey Tucker, Eckler. Yeah, when Devontae Smith and Tank Dell are back, I guess this roster looks a little bit better. I just look at this roster and it doesn't scream championship to me. Najee Harris in a starting lineup, I can't get over it. Maybe I'm just looking too much at the names, but even when you insert Devontae Smith and Tank Dell, I feel like it's just a bunch of RB2s and then a bunch of wide receiver 2s and then a top 10 quarterback. Do you get what I'm saying? He doesn't have that bona fide alpha anywhere. It's just solid across the board, which is Sam's game. It's going to probably get him into the playoffs. I just think he's going to run up against some squads who are outmatching him at certain positions. So I couldn't put him in the next tier. The next tier is called engraving potential. Now, I did this. I kept this on here. I made these rankings actually yesterday before the trade went through. So I just wanted to leave it and show you guys what I thought about these players before even making the trade, because I will comment on the trade in this section, because we had both of our teams who made that trade yesterday up here near the top. Jono's team's up here. When you look at the starting roster, and this was before, so I had Saquon and London in here, right? But now I think it gets even better. Jordan Love, I think he goes on an MVP run. People don't realize how much the Packers like throwing down in the red zone. He was QB5 last year. He's looking like he's putting up, top 5 QB points per game again this year. By the time playoffs come around, will Tua be back for Achane? Just like I talked with Troy's team, will Tua be back for Tyreek? I don't know. Christian Kirk, he's doing well. This Jawan Jennings spot will actually be Cooper Kupp come playoff time. Kupp will be back. It's a pretty good starting lineup. Swift actually looks like he's usable. The only weak spot on this team is really tight end when you look at it. If we're going to come playoff time. And I think that the trade was good for this team. Their weakness is wide receiver. They got Nico Collins, who is playing like he's going to be the wide receiver 1. If he keeps that up, this team is going to be great come playoff time. Has to dodge the injuries, of course. I'm just, I'm assuming. I can only assume, what injuries have happened. I can't predict injuries going into the future. But yeah, a little bit upside on the bench too. If Pollard goes down, if Jawan keeps producing, say there's a different 49ers injury. So this team has options, and it's overall a really good, strong starting lineup. Next with engraving potential is Jake. Now look at what Kenneth Walker looks good, and Nico is the wide receiver 1, and he'll get AJ back. So that's why I went and traded for those guys. I was doing these rankings, and I was like, I really want both those players. But he got good players in return. So why did this trade make sense for Jake's team? We went over why it made sense for my team. Nico needed a wide receiver. Jake's team, Jake's weakness is running back. He's starting Rico Dowdle this week while he's got Saquon and Montgomery on bye. Normally it has Saquon and Montgomery in there. So better than your average team's running backs, but for a team wanting to win a championship, he had Kenneth, Jacobs, and Montgomery. Kenneth coming off the injury. Jacobs looked like he's going to be a little TD dependent. Love likes to throw touchdowns more than rub them in. So he's probably going to be in the RB 15 to 20 range, not top 10. And then Montgomery is so touchdown dependent, and there will be some weeks he doesn't score a touchdown. So now Jake has that bona fide RB1 with Saquon. He didn't have to downgrade at receiver that much. He still has London. And honestly, the big reason why this makes sense is because he just shipped Ford and Chubb for Ayuk, who I think Ayuk has room to only go up from where he's at right now. Come end of season, when Christian McCaffrey's back drawing more attention, maybe he's doing better. The Wicks pickup is good. A.J. Brown, not to mention, will be back from injury soon. Everything about this team except Mahomes looks solid, and Tucker Kraft, but you have to figure Mahomes is going to figure it out by the end of the season. And if not, maybe he can figure out something to do at quarterback because he has so much depth. So I think Jake's team has potential to win the championship. And then the last one, he has the most elite starting lineup if he can dodge injuries, right? Lamar, top 5 QB. Brees should be a top 5 RB even if Braylon Allen gets carries. ETN should be a top 15 RB. He hasn't even done that well this season or scored that many touchdowns, and he looks solid, right? He's in the mid double digits. Neighbors should be top 5. Adunze, a really good player to have as your wide receiver 2 as he's developing as the season goes on, or Brian Thomas maybe slots into there. Kmet, whatever. Brian Robinson, he's probably going to end the season right where he is right now, right? RB11, RB14. He's even more valuable in the first down league, right? He's probably actually RB8 or 9 for us right now. And then that flex spot will be filled, like I said, by Brian Thomas, maybe Pearsall. He has Kittle. He has Kittle too. That's what I was missing with this squad. Yeah, this starting lineup's just super solid, and there's nothing else to say about it. Those are Bonzo's predictions for end of season potential. Big couple trades went down this week. I think it helped both teams at the top, actually. A rare case of not one person losing the trade, but if all the players perform as expected, it'll actually help positionally for both Jake and Jono's team. And yeah, we'll return back to these in a handful of months. We'll be back to normal power rankings, but after month 1, Bonzo needed to revise his initial projections. I have to look before the season. I know I had Shelbin up there. I think Jake is the biggest surprise team because Bonzo preseason ranked him low. He had Jono's team, Mark's team, and John's team all ranked pretty high as well. I think the disappointment is Chuck, who really dropped down there. But yeah, it looks like of the top 6-ish teams, Bonzo was high on about 5 of them. So good start to the season for everyone.